Hey, what's up, guys? It's me, William Jacobs. I'm your Vice Wing Commander here at the Citadel, and today I'm going to be teaching you guys about the game of Icarus. So the object of this game is it's a team competition to achieve air superiority and to prevent the enemy team from doing the same. So you want to inflict damage on the enemy by waging aerial warfare and simulating air and space functions. So the way the game works is each team is going to have 10 to 15 players with a difference of no more than one player for each team. So if there's a difference between each team, it will be examined and rectified at every air superiority and at the halftime. Individuals removed from the game for unsportsmanlike conduct do not count towards this calculation. And if your team has to sit out a player in order to reduce the differential to 1, the AOC director, which is going to be this guy here with this little red dot on him, he will decide which player sits. Every player must play at least one half of every Icarus operation. A student may not sit out for more than a single half until each member of the flight has also sat out. The same participation rules apply to the beginning of the Icarus tournament, and differential substitutions will only take place during halftime. Each player is going to wear a penny, and no player is allowed to wear a duplicate penny. The AOC director may choose to utilize a duplicate numbered player as a loggy to collect ordnance or make them a non-participant, and I'll explain what a loggy is later. If you have to sit out because you have a duplicate number, you're not factored into that calculation of whether or not which team has one person or more than two people on another team. So Icarus is played on a field that is 160 by 90 feet. It's divided in half like this. So it's divided in half at the 80-foot boundary by either a solid or dotted white line. The line across the field is called the forward edge of the battle area. So this line here is referred to as the forward edge of the battle area. So if I'm on this team, this side is the friendly area, but as soon as I cross, I'm in the enemy's battle area, and I become a legitimate target. So also, another thing that I forgot to mention is the white borders of each of these sites that I have indicated here. Each of these white borders indicate a friendly area. So when you're inside of those white borders, you're in a friendly area. All right. So the battle area is populated with 26 cones, 13 per side. So if you look here, there will be 13 cones for each side. Each cone represents a vulnerability or a target associated with the center of gravity. And basically what a center of gravity is it's one way of scoring points or potentially winning a game of Icarus. So, for example, the relay stations here. If these 3 relay stations are all knocked out, then the enemy has achieved air superiority, and basically they win a certain amount of points for establishing air superiority. So yeah, there's 26 cones, 13 per side, and then there's 24 rubber balls. The balls may or may not actually be rubber; they may be styrofoam balls. You'll see whenever you get there. But there's 24 rubber balls, and each cone represents a critical vulnerability. Yeah, I said that. So there's going to be 4 red, 4 green, and 4 yellow balls for each side. The yellow balls will be kept inside the AOC center. So this here I use to indicate an AOC, and these will be the 4 yellow balls. They will be kept inside of this area prior to the start of the game. So once you begin your execution of the game is divided into 2 5-minute periods with a 2-minute break at halftime or 30 total minutes. Alright, whichever occurs first. Due to the fluidity of the game, you're probably not going to see a lot of clock stoppages in this game. The head official of the game, however, will act as the timekeeper and will announce the time remaining in the period. And also, the game superiority will only be stopped if the game clock will only be stopped if air superiority is gained. Multiple or gross rules, or if multiple gross rule violations occur. So basically, like if you're throwing balls at people's heads super hard, that's like a gross rule violation. They'll stop the time to make sure that everybody's safe. Alright, so each team is going to have 4 centers of gravity that are critical to victory. The AOC, the air bases, the comm relay stations, and the SAM sites. The centers of gravity are defined and assigned target cones. So the AOC here is going to have 3 cones, which are marked by these orange dots that I've kind of drawn on the screen for you guys. So each of these orange dots represent a cone, and then these blue dots as well represent a cone. And basically those are going to be your centers of gravity. So you're going to have your air operating center here. I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but this is going to be your air operating center. These here are going to be your bases from which you can deploy your offensive and defensive assets. And then these here are going to be your comm relay stations, these blue cones, which basically allow you to deploy your people. Alright, also there are SAM sites. So if the SAM sites are destroyed, you don't necessarily gain air superiority. However, you do gain points for destroying the SAM sites. Or you prevent your opponent from being able to inflict damage onto you by destroying these SAM sites. So if this cone is destroyed, you can't really deploy people to your SAM sites, and you kind of lose one line of defense. So there are 4 functions simulated in Icarus. Offensive counter-air, defensive counter-air, command and control, and then combat support or loggies. So a player tasked on an offensive counter-air sortie basically will go to one of these bases, and they will grab one of these red balls. So you can be deployed to a base as on an OCA sortie. So if I'm the AOC director, I could say player 1 go to left base, offensive counter air. And basically what player 1 is going to do is they're going to follow a path that looks something like this. So they're going to come out of the AOC, touch one of these blue cones, one of these 3 blue cones, and then they're going to go and perform that job that I said for them. So they're going to be offensive counter air, so they're going to grab a red ball. And then they will traverse the field to the enemy side of the field and conduct attacks. So here he would attack the enemy side of the field and then throw his red ball at some target on this side of the field. He could even throw it here as he's crossing one of the SAM sites. Alright, so let me get rid of all of that for you. So that's what an offensive counter-air sortie would look like. You also have defensive counter-air sorties. Basically what you can do is on a defensive counter-air sortie, you can carry and release one of the green balls. So same situation, I'm the AOC coordinator. I would say player 1, you'll be playing left base, defensive counter-air. So player 1 will leave the AOC, touch the comm station, touch any comm station, and then go to that base and then grab a ball. And then they'll stay inside the friendly area to kind of defend against people crossing into our area, and then who will throw his green ball at them and wipe them off the map. Alright? So that's kind of what a defensive counter-air sortie would look like. Um, Next, you have command and control, which is initiated by the AOC director, who will be wearing a red jersey or a red penny whenever you guys do end up playing this game. The AOC director can never be a legitimate target. So if I'm the AOC director and let's say the enemy team sends one of their guys, so they send one of their guys to come and attack me, I, as the AOC director, can never be attacked by one of the enemy players. If that does happen, that would lead to, so that would be a rule violation, and that person would be eliminated from the game. One thing that I forgot to mention also is if you're on a sortie of some sort and you are knocked out of the air. So let's say player 1 goes to the comm relay station. He grabs this ball and he runs to the enemy side of the field and he gets eliminated by one of their SAM sites. He will go to the opposite side's graveyard. Same thing if I'm on defensive counter air and I get eliminated by a player on the other team. If I get eliminated, I will go to the other side's graveyard. So if you are hit with a dodgeball, basically you'll go to a graveyard until the halftime or until air superiority is reached, whichever comes first. Another thing is their loggies. So players assigned to the loggy role will wear a green penny or some other penny to indicate that they're a loggy. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to collect ordnance released by friendly sorties, SAM sites, or the AOC director. So they'll wear blue, green, or a duplicate number. And basically, they're the only players allowed to pick up a dodgeball once you've already thrown it. So, let's say player 1 goes off the field, grabs a red ball, comes down here, he throws his ball, he misses, or even if he hits somebody, and now the ball is just over here floating around. One of the loggies is going to run down the field, grab the ball, pick it up, and return it back to his side of the field. So that's the role of the loggies. So basically, the only role of the loggies is to collect the balls and then to collect friendly balls and return them back to his side of the field where they belong. A loggy sent to the graveyard cannot be replaced, and the jersey will not be returned to the AOC. So, initial deployment. The initial deployment of the game basically is when the game starts. So before the game can start, each player is going to get in a single file line. The AOC director will task the player to move 2 bases or SAM sites. And basically a legitimate tasking will include a function and a direction. So I could say offense left, defense right, offense left, defense right. So that would be like a legitimate tasking. And the AOC director can task a player to an occupied SAM site. But if the SAM site is still occupied when the player arrives, the player must vacate the SAM site. If the AOC director tasks the player, they must touch one of these blue cones, as I said earlier. Once a player has exited the battle area of play, they may only return to the game. So let's say player 1 ran all the way down the field and now he's exiting the field. He can only return back onto the field if he's directed to do so by the AOC director. Alright. Another rule is that the AOC director can launch any of these yellow balls any of these yellow dodgeballs from within the AOC cone. So if, for example, this team sends one of their guys on an offensive sortie and they're getting close to attacking our AOC, I can throw one of these balls at his ball to kind of knock the ball out of the air, kind of like the Patriot missile defense. You can't necessarily throw the ball at another player, but you can throw it at another ordnance to keep it out of the air. Correction, please. You can throw it at another player. So those are kind of like the main rules of the game. Now we want to go over what are like the violations of the game. So a player can be removed from the operation and sent to the graveyard for the following reasons. So one is a good kill. So if you're on an offensive or defensive base and if you're on the offensive or defensive sortie and you're hit by an enemy's red ball, or you're hit by a green ball if you're on an offensive sortie, then you can die and basically you'll be sent to the graveyard. This is termed a good kill in Icarus. Once you're considered a good kill, you have to drop your ball without forcing it in any direction and then go to the graveyard. You can also get an LOAC violation, which is basically when you strike another player in the head or neck prior to contacting the ground or a target cone. So a player struck in the head as a result of from a dodgeball will not be considered dead. You can die due to interference, which is basically illegally blocking a target cone in any manner. If you make physical contact with an enemy's cone or an enemy's carried ordnance to block it, then you die. If you try to hold the cone or block it, you die. If you move an ordnance by any means other than carrying it, you die. And if you're conducting a combat support mission and you're a loggy, so if you're one of these guys wearing the green or blue pennies, and you interfere with an enemy ordnance, you'll die. Any player other than a loggy that attempts to retrieve, stop, or divert the path of a released ordnance will die and be sent to the graveyard. If you don't follow the orders of the AOC director, you'll die and be sent to the graveyard. And if you fire an ordnance from any area, so if you're a SAM guy and you fire an ordnance while not within the SAM site, you can die. If you're a green guy and you try to fire an ordnance not from within the friendly areas, you'll die and be sent to the graveyard. So you can also be returned to the air operating system for a number of reasons. So if you move past the center comm relay station without touching one of these blue cones, so if you move past this blue cone without touching any of these three blue cones, then you'll be returned back to the AOC. Your mission is complete once you release your ordnance or you step outside the battle area. So if I'm player 1 and I grab one of these green balls and I throw my ball anywhere, my mission is complete and I have to step off and return back to the AOC. If I'm player 1 and I grab a red ball and I run down here and I throw my red ball and I knock out one of their SAM sites and I step off, my mission is complete and I return back to the AOC. You can also be sent to the graveyard for unsportsmanlike conduct, inappropriate language, questioning the official's judgment, or for any reason that the head official determines to be disruptive to gameplay. So, with that being said, hopefully I've gone over all of the rules of Icarus, and I've kind of explained it in a manner that you guys will be able to understand it and hopefully play it whenever you show up to field training. I know that this format is not ideal, but I'm trying to make do with what best we have, especially with what's going on right now. Final words, I want you guys to all stay safe. Listen to the government. If they're telling you not to go outside, or if you see that the situation's getting bad, stay at home and self-quarantine. Don't put yourself at risk, and don't put yourself in danger. I'd like to thank you guys for being the great people that you are, and I really hope that you guys will continue studying and continue to improve moving forward, and continue to develop yourselves, not just for field training, but as leaders to hopefully go into the world's Air Force. Because ultimately that is our goal, is to become officers in the Air Force and leaders of our nation. So make sure that you guys are staying safe and continue to develop yourselves despite what's going on in the country, despite the coronavirus. Continue to study, continue to develop yourselves, and be good students, alright? With that being said, I'm logging off. Thanks again for watching my video. These were the rules of Icarus. If you have any questions, make sure that you guys ask them down below in the comment section, or shoot me an email. You guys all know my email, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.